Today, Russian President Vladimir Putin and President Donald Trump met in Alaska to talk about ending Russia's war in Ukraine. It's been 3.5 years since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the biggest in Europe since World War II. It's also the world's first drone war. Today, Russia occupies around 20% of Ukraine's land. In the 24 hours leading up to today's summit, Russia strikes killed 7 civilians and injured 17 more in Ukraine. Meanwhile, Ukrainian strikes injured 12 in Russia. We are asking questions about what it could take to end the war and how the U.S. is getting involved. That summit today notably excluded Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who is needed to find an end to this fighting. I'm joined now by Dr. Glenn Duerr, the chair of the History of Government Department at Cedarville University. Dr. Duerr, welcome. Thanks so much for joining us. I'll start with this. President Trump has said his goal for this meeting is to secure a ceasefire. What progress could be made toward that without Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky being present?
Well, certainly it's a multiple stage approach to ending the conflict, and really getting the ceasefire is a significant first step. Really, one portion of it is having these two sides lay down their guns, but in particular, aquatic conflict from the Black Sea, as well as missile exchanges, drone exchanges from the air. That would be a first step, and then before it would precede laying down of arms and weaponry on the ground. It's obviously a calculation on both sides, but it would need to get Russia's approval first, is the way that President Trump sees it, and then to bring in President Zelensky of Ukraine, and then maybe have them work together, or their respective secretaries of state or foreign ministers, before something wider is accomplished. But really trying to lay down the weaponry first in the air and in the sea would be a first step towards a ceasefire.
Now, this meeting comes a week after President Trump put a deadline on Russia to end the war or face consequences. Where does that stand?
Really, we're in the midst of it right now. For President Trump, he's very, very concerned about a European war going wider into some larger global conflagration. We saw it with World War II, with World War I, with the Napoleonic Wars, with the 7 Years' Wars, war of the 18th century. And so really trying to stop it right now is significant. But in terms of grave consequences, it could come with significant and extra additional sanctions, tariffs. There are several countries, China, India, Indonesia, that buy a lot of Russian oil and natural gas, that have really helped Vladimir Putin fund his aggression against Ukraine. And so that's one of the big consequences that could come out of it. Another one is that President Trump could simply sell a lot of the newer generation weaponry from the United States, and that would give Ukraine an upper hand. So he's really trying to force both sides to a negotiating table, to a ceasefire. We'll see what happens, because there are a lot of potential speed bumps to a ceasefire and an end to the war as well.
So what are in these negotiations for the United States? What does Trump want out of it for America?
On the one hand, a wider peace deal. For President Trump, he's really tried to push peace globally, from the Abraham Accords to a recent negotiation with Armenia and Azerbaijan, as well as the Southeast Asian countries of Thailand and Cambodia. And it would stifle anything that's wider and the danger of a World War III. The other side of it, too, is Ukraine is rich in rare earth minerals, in lithium, in copper, and all kinds of other deposits. And there's the potential that that could actually allow for something of a security guarantee for Ukraine, because Russian leader Vladimir Putin has said, I don't want Ukraine joining the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, but having American businessmen, engineers, intelligence officers on the ground in Ukraine around the rare earth minerals could provide that level of security guarantee. So those are the two big things, as I see it, in terms of what the United States wants from a ceasefire.
All right, Cedarville University's Dr. Glenn Duerr, we thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.